as I look at my practice, I look at other practices, and I've been obviously doing this for 10, 12 years now, trying to analyze my own practice and how I can share that with people. One of the things I don't think I've adequately communicated is the real kind of hidden business model behind the business model. And I want to try to talk about that today, and I have a case study I want to show you to explain that. And that, I think maybe some of the reason why it's hard for me to articulate this is because it's been unconscious. I hadn't really planned this out, but I have a perfect example of this here. And we can look this, you can look at this in two different ways. You can look at this as a patient follow-up system, a way to get people who you heal to stay well for the long term. Or you can look at this as a business model for recurring revenue. Now, I did not purposely set this up as a recurring revenue model where I could make more money, but that's kind of inadvertently what ended up happening. And there's a key to this, and I want to try to share it with you today so you guys can start to implement this, because I don't think you have to wait or mistakenly kind of discover this like I did. You can kind of plan this out purposefully. So let's take a look here at what I'm trying to talk about. So number one is that there are these different phases, and you can see here on the health plans. Let me get up a clean one here. It might be easier. You can see on the health plan, I have it divided up into two different things. One is that there's a wellness program, and then the other portion of it is that there's a therapeutic or a series of therapeutic programs. And this is really kind of one of the keys to making this whole thing work. So the wellness program is what the patient would start with and what you would want them to be on for the rest of their lives. The therapeutic programs below are designed to be short-term. So short-term to me is 2 months of yeast killing, 6 months of liver support, 6 to 12 months of an adrenal program. Therapeutic programs are solely based on the labs in my world, and they're short-term. At the most, they're maybe 6 months to a year, sometimes only a couple months. So the therapeutic programs, it's very important to have a timeline on each of them, otherwise this gets really messy and you get into problems just with follow-up and whatnot. But the wellness program is what you want that person to be on for the rest of their life. For example, my mom has a wellness program. We ship her stuff, or she comes by the office every couple months to pick it all up. She has some vitamin D, some B12. She has curcumin, because when she takes her curcumin, her joints don't hurt. And I think some osteoporosis formula. So that's, hopefully, my mom will take that for the next 20 years, and she'll die when she's 100. That's her wellness program that keeps her fit and healthy. The thing is that from a strategy standpoint, when you're working with a new patient, the time and energy and work that it takes to get a new patient to show up at your door, you want that person to basically be in your clinic for the rest of their life. And if they have children, you want their children to come into your clinic. Okay? And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I've been so successful is I've been able to pull this off. Again, not really intentionally, but in order to keep people around, the strategy needs to be a therapeutic program or a series of therapeutic programs that addresses their chief complaints, that moves into a wellness program that they can stay on forever, which is why they want to stick around and still be with you. Okay? So the wellness programs can run independently of how often that person is coming in, and they're going to continue to basically buy supplements and lab kits from you in order to reinforce that wellness program. So in my clinic right now, for a long time I did a yearly adrenal panel as the sort of check-in for my wellness patients. Now I've shifted it over, and I'm much more satisfied using an organic acids test as a once-a-year check-in. Does a couple of things. Just like with my dentist, I go every 6 months or a year to get my teeth cleaned. Basically, she comes up at the end of the cleaning, looks around and says, oh, maybe you need an x-ray. It looks like there's a cavity there. You should come back. But it's her way to check in with her patients every year or so and to identify problems before they get really bad. It's a great practice building, business building thing for her because she's got me in her office once a year getting my teeth cleaned, and it's really easy to upsell me on a little cavity problem or an x-ray because I haven't had my x-rays in like 7 years or whatever it is that she's selling me as an additional service. And so it's the exact same thing with our practices. Like, and I'm never going to leave that dental practice. I've been going to that dental practice since I was like 5 years old. Dr. Who now retired. He sold it to Dr. Merhardy, and now I see Merhardy. I mean, I would crawl there if I had to. I mean, why would I ever go to another dental office? Really, it's the only one I know since I was 5 years old. So, and it's the same. We want to instill that kind of feeling with our patients, but you got to have a reason for people to stick around. Okay, and if you find out, and you don't have to do the yearly organics profile, I just found that that's the one that gives me the most to talk about and the most to work on for my wellness people. So typical patient comes in, we put them through their therapeutic programs, which you guys know well, an adrenal protocol, a thyroid program, a female hormone program, clean up their gut, get their liver working better. Okay, so you fast forward to maybe 6 months or a year into working with this patient. Now you want to make sure that you have something that's designed specifically for this purpose that you've been talking about the whole time, which is moving them over to their wellness program. Now, in the beginning, the wellness program might be really simple. It might just be like the multi-packs and some probiotics or something like that. It doesn't have to be super complicated. But the ongoing program or the wellness part of the program is something that they can start with when they first get started with you, but that's then going to continue when all the therapeutic programs have run their course. So your adrenal protocol is over now. You're sleeping well. That's great. We're going to kick you back to the wellness program. That's the underlying foundational program that's going to keep you well, keep you from having that sleep problem coming back, etc. What should I do as a follow-up? I want you to, once a year, run an organic acids profile, and we'll do a short visit once a year and make sure that everything's staying on track. So that's like my equivalent of offering a teeth cleaning, right? Gets patients back in the office, gets them re-engaged, and because I've been relatively successful at doing that, we now have so many old patients that are coming back in that my practice is relatively full. It's not closed. We still take in new patients. Probably could be doing a better job at retaining people. And you guys, just hearing this talk, hopefully over the next couple, 3 years, can create even more robust patient retention programs. And you hopefully can retain and keep the majority of new patients that are coming in to your practice for the long term. Now, if you get a grumpy, unpleasant person, I wouldn't encourage them to do this because you probably don't want to deal with a grumpy, unpleasant person, once a year forever. But people that you like and you have a good connection with, this is a really great way to go. So let me just show you a concrete example of this with a real person that came in about a week ago. So here she is. Let's call her Lisa. It's not her real name. 2014. We did the standard things I always do, her adrenal program, her gut protocol, and this organic acids test was part of her intake. Depressed, anxious, can't sleep, really bad brain-related problems. Put her on a basic program back in 2014. Miracle cure. She's feeling great. We did all the basics well, got her feeling really good. And if you look at the lab, the initial one, of course we did an adrenal and GI program too, but I just want to show you the organic acids profiles so you can see how this works. So on that initial test, she had a problem with B6. Her methylation was shut down. She needed B12. Kynurenate was elevated. She had major brain problems, which we were able to correct with the amino acids. She had one liver marker. I wasn't sure what that meant at the time, but later on you'll see it was pretty important. And she had the usual gut problems that we see. Okay, so fixed her H. pylori, whatever the gut infection was, I can't remember now. Worked on the adrenals a bit, feels great. 6-8 months into the program, super happy. Moved her over to a maintenance schedule, and again, maintenance means once a year, I want you to run this organic acids test, Lisa, to stay on track. So remember then again, one B vitamin marker, a B12 marker, kynurenate, showing the brain problem, one liver marker, and 2 things going on with the gut. And where she got the biggest benefit was working with the brain. All her cravings went away. She lost all this weight, depression, anxiety gone. Just a typical great case. Here's organic acids profile, number 1. You can see the methylmalonate marker at a 2. So kynurenate at a 1.2, so she has inflammation, driving problems with the brain. 1 liver marker, hydroxybutyrate, couple of gut things, okay? Relatively normal. Normal for, a patient. It's got some problems. So then we do her, and then you got to imagine what happened was she's feeling great. I mean, I feel like, oh, she's fixed. And the old version of Dan, we would have lost touch with her, wouldn't have heard from her until she started to have problems again. But in the spirit of, the once-a-year teeth cleaning, we have this once-a-year organic acids test that I really push patients to do. So she came back in 2015, a year and 2 months later, and did her yearly check-in. And here's the test. And this was from a patient who was doing extremely well for the first 6 months. Now we see carbohydrate metabolism markers show up. They weren't even there before. Energy production markers showing up. That wasn't there before either. She's still got that B6 marker. She's still got the methylmalonate problem. And now she still has the kynurenate problem, but it's gotten worse. Okay, now it's very high instead of just high. And her liver detox markers, she had 1 of them before, now there's 2. So what happened here? She developed new problems in that year. Carb metabolism fell apart, mitochondrial damage. The old stuff was still there, which is not good. Neurotransmitters got worse, and her liver got worse. Now, this is just like you go back to see your dentist. It's been a couple, years or whatever. You're not brushing your teeth carefully, and they say, oh, you have a problem with your gums, or you have a cavity. We have to do it. Like, this is a problem. This yearly checkup caught the fact that she had started drinking alcohol heavily again. Okay, and I wouldn't have known this if I hadn't had her do a yearly checkup. She didn't come into our office in the morning on a Wednesday at 9 and say, oh, hey, Dr. Kalish, great to see you again. I'm an alcoholic and I started drinking again. I didn't tell you all that before. This came up because I did the test. So now we're in the 2nd year of working with her. Oh, and then here's another thing that happened is that and I hate it when patients do this, she got married and she changed her name. Don't you hate that? So we always knew her as like Lisa Smith, and now she's like Lisa Jones. So it screws up all your record keeping. But this is an important part of the story. She ended up getting married right around this time, right around year 2. And she's drinking a lot. Obviously, marriage is wonderful. Drinking a lot, not so great. Alcohol affecting the liver, alcohol affecting the brain, alcohol affecting her carbohydrate metabolism, and her mitochondria getting damaged. Now, of course, she's not feeling very good either. And if we had lost track of her, we wouldn't have known any of this. She would have gone away, So now what do we see on the labs? Again, just to reiterate, pyruvate and lactate are elevated. They were fine before. Alcohol is going to do that. Of course, alcohol is a sugar. It's going to screw up your carb metabolism. There's hydroxymethylglutarate. So she's got some mitochondrial damage, probably from the alcohol as well. The B vitamin markers that were there before are still there now, but they're a little worse. The kynurenate went up. It's a little worse. And then she's got these 2 liver markers, and I think there was just 1 in the original lab. Okay, so this is a woman who's really suffering and not doing very well. Put her on a program, got her back on track pretty well, actually. I mean, she's been a really good patient. I like this woman a lot. Got her back on track, stopped the drinking, saw her probably 1 or 2 times, till things were settled down. And then I did my usual stick. Okay, you're back on track. This is really wonderful. I'm glad things are settling down. Glad you got married. A lot of stress with the marriage, planning a wedding. That always freaks people out. Kind of understand why you slipped. Let's do your organic acids profile again in a year. So in other words, intervening with a few visits, getting her stable, then putting her back on our once-a-year teeth cleaning plan here, organic acids. And she disappears again for a while. I'm thinking things are fine. And then we get this lab back just a couple weeks ago, her yearly organic acids profile. And really, like a year, she's doing these tests like once a year exactly, because the last one was April, so she retested in April, we got the results in May. And I'm looking at this lab before I talked to her, and I'm thinking, oh, this doesn't look so bad. If you remember before, there were carb metabolism markers before, and they're gone now. That's good. There's an energy production marker before. Okay, something's still there. That's understandable. The neurotransmitter markers are gone now for the first time. The B vitamin markers are gone for the first time. The methylation marker, B12, is gone for the first time. So the B vitamins, methylation, and brain are all better. There's only one detox marker instead of two. So overall, things are quite a bit better. And there's this one yeast marker here, which was never there before. So looking at the lab, you're thinking, well, this is, there's one thing that's new. Really, if you're going to summarize, there's one new problem. D-arabinitol was not there before, but everything else is looking like it's really getting better. It looks like a pretty happy set of circumstances here. Now let's just go back. I want to show you a little bit of detail here, just to refresh your memory. Here's the second year's test. Remember, she got worse, too much alcohol. Carb metabolism, that's gone now. So her ability to process carbs is better. And in fact, when I asked her, she said, yeah, I've been feeling great. You don't crave anything anymore. It's going really well. Physically, biochemically, her cravings were all gone. She still has one energy production marker. This got knocked out, though. This got knocked out. The brain chemistry, which was her biggest problem, was all clear. And she felt it, like brain on. Good job, brain on. Detox markers, we knocked out one of these, but not the other. Okay, but where I want to show you again is her D-arabinitol on the second year test was down at a 23. Okay, and that's a nice, wonderful number, 23. And this is when she wasn't doing very well. Now we get the new test back, and again, 3 markers are positive. 2 of them were there before, energy and detox, but whole areas have cleared up, especially her most important one, which was neurotransmitters. So I'm asking her, how are you feeling? I'm thinking, well, this is going to be like a little bit of a tune-up. She says all the way through the year, she was feeling great. Cravings gone, depression gone, anxiety gone. Just symptom-free and feeling wonderfully. And whatever maintenance program I had her on was working beautifully. So we're sitting down and we're looking at this test, and I'm thinking things are going pretty well. Lisa's finally doing okay. And then I look at the D-arabinitol number, and I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, well, that's not just a little bit of a yeast overgrowth, is it? Remember what it was before? It was 23. And it went up to a 201. That's a big increase. So she was feeling great physically. The program had worked on a biochemical level, but what happened a couple months before she did the yearly retest is she had a major confrontation with the new husband, And it turns out she's already in a really horrific and bad marriage. And so what she decided to start doing was binging on sugar. She didn't start drinking again. Binging on sugar 4 or 5 times every day. Bag of cookies, another bag of cookies, whatever she was eating, 4 or 5 times a day binging. Thankfully, she didn't start drinking alcohol again, but the binging on the sugar was not so good, and that just drove her yeast markers through the roof. So now we're into year 3 of doing this maintenance checkup. In year 2, we helped her get off of alcohol. In year 3, she's in the middle of a recurrence of an old eating disorder, and stuck in a really unhealthy marriage. So in the old Dan model, in the very first year, if I had treated her at the 6-month mark, she's feeling better, we just let her go, would have missed all these other issues. And so one of the things that's really wonderful about this work is that if you find out what your niche is and what your once-a-year check-in is and the reason why that person has to come back, and I strongly recommend you make it some kind of a lab test, so there's a reason why they want to come back to you, and track these things over time, that you can start to develop long-term relationships with all these patients that are coming in, and not just usher them through that initial short-term problem that they have that you can solve in that first year, but to have them be a regular long-term maintenance type patient that you're seeing year in and year out. Okay, and that's really the business model in a way. And as you can see with someone like Lisa, it offers a really comprehensive service to people as well. So you're not just getting them feeling better and letting them go, but you're, staying in their lives to help them with all the other issues that they may end up struggling with as time goes on. Okay, and I think that's a pretty critical issue for people to think about. Now, not all of my patients sign up for this kind of a thing, and I don't maybe push it as hard as I could, but we have enough people doing this on a regular basis that it's really filled up my practice. And so there's much less concern for every one of these yearly maintenance people. There's much less concern for me each year about getting new patients because the schedule fills up more and more and more as the years go by with the Lisas of the world who are just going to, basically, hopefully, do this test once a year for the next couple of decades as a maintenance kind of follow-up type thing. Okay. So now, from a business model perspective, the reason why this is so profitable, if you just think about the numbers for a second, let's say someone like her, let's say that she's on some maintenance version of a little 5-HTP, tyrosine, some probiotics, and some like female hormone support or something like that, herbal. Let's say she's on 3 or 4 things like that. I mean, she could easily be spending, I don't know, let's give a nice easy number. Let's say probably $180 a month. How about that? On her supplements, right? And then once a year, she has to drop $300 on the lab. So if you do the math on that, that's $180 times 12. Is that right? Yeah, 180 times 12. Well, actually, let's make it a rounder number. Let's make it lower so it's easier. Because this is realistic. People spend $150 a month, no problem. So let's say it's $150 a month for her program. $150 times 12. That's, oh, see, that makes the math better, doesn't it? That's $1,800 a year. Plus the test, plus the consult. So let's say a 30-minute consult once a year. That's another $200 in my clinic. So she's spending roughly $2,000 a year with us. So imagine that you had, 50 patients, right? That were these long-term maintenance patients, which is a pretty realistic number of people to get. That's $100,000 a year of income right there. Okay? Just with 50 people. 50. That's not a huge number. I mean, that means you're getting, give yourself 2 years to build up this, to build up to this. It's 2 patients a month that you're moving to a maintenance program. Okay, so 2 patients a month. Try to keep the numbers easy here. 2 patients a month, 2 years, you're going to end up with about 50 people. And that's $100,000 in additional income. Now, the beauty of it and why this is such a wonderful thing, and this is why I don't have to work so hard, is how much time are you actually spending, right? You're only spending 30 minutes per patient, plus whatever you have to do to answer their emails and stuff here or there, right? So if you have 50 people doing it, that looks like it's about 25 hours a year of your paid time to generate $100,000 in sales. And that's where the real sweet spot in our business is. When you're working with a chronically ill patient population, you may be selling them $500 to $1,000 a month worth of supplements, but the amount of time that you're going to spend dealing with their case is going to be huge. And if you guys could each just get 50 long-term maintenance people in the next couple of years, you'll have $100,000 in passive income coming in. And I actually really enjoy this too. Like, I like talking to people like Lisa. I like figuring out, wow, you're binging on sugar 4 or 5 times every day? Lisa, this is not good. We got to get you to a marriage counselor and figure this out. I mean, I like being involved in people's lives in this way. It's a really pleasant kind of relationship to have. And you get to know people really well as the years go by. And they have children and their parents die and things happen. You're just a fixture in their life, just like my dentist is, She knows everything about me. I'm going to the same dental office since I was 5 years old. And that's kind of a wonderful clinical model and a really wonderful business model as well. Now, obviously, if you can get up to a larger number of people, like let's say you have 200 patients, let's say it's the end of your career and you've attracted 200 maintenance patients over all that time, and I can't seem to spell maintenance, no matter what I try to do. How about we just call them wellness patients, because they can't spell maintenance. 200 wellness patients. What's the math on that? That's 400 grand a year. And that's going to take you 100 hours a year of work. I mean, you could retire on that, right? 100 hours a year of work. You're working like a couple hours a week, basically. You're seeing your old school maintenance patients. Maybe you do work 1 day a week, still generating a couple hundred grand in income. And, that's something you can live on, and you don't have to worry about, you know, what's going to happen when you retire if you build up this kind of a practice. And I fully intend to do this. When I retire, I'm just going to probably go to 1 day a week of patients and just, get rid of everyone else and just keep the maintenance people. And I'll have a really comfortable income, work a day a week, and that's where this business model can go if you start to develop the relationships with people. It's really different. This is a different model than the way I was taught, which was a chronic illness model only working with the most chronically ill patients year after year, just getting new chronically ill patients. Just to me, personally, that was too much in terms of too much work and too much stress. I really couldn't handle it. I kind of cracked and burned out because I was trying to be perfect and help everybody so much, which is way too much of a perfectionist to handle the chronic illness model. And most of those patients need a lot more care than I could figure out how to offer anyways. So I wasn't really offering them the best services, and I understood that, But the Lisas of the world, totally comfortable with. They need people like you and me, and it's a really great way to structure all this. So what I would say, as you guys are looking at your businesses, try to determine is look at your current income based on the number of new patients coming in and your patient life cycle and how all that plays out, right? And then look at what would be the wellness program or potential residual income that you could generate depending on, I'm just making up the numbers that are pretty close to what my practice does. Maybe you only want to sell people $100 a month for maintenance products, so it's going to be a little bit less overall money, but you'll get more people into your group. Maybe you'll do an adrenal lab once a year instead of an organics test, or do some other kind of lab for their yearly check-in. But that's really where you should be thinking. And the crossover, I think, that you should know is when your current income no longer exceeds your wellness program income. Then you know you got it made. So in other words, when the wellness program income starts to generate more cash each month than your current income of working with new patients and putting them through all these therapeutic programs, then you know you've made a shift so that you're more heavily reliant in terms of servicing the ongoing patients that are the once a year people. And then the new patients become less critical. And of course, then you don't have to stress out about it as much because you've got the bulk of your income coming from these once a year wellness people. And you may mix it up. Some of you may want to do a twice a year visit, whatever it is. But I find once a year goes by fast. Doing an organic acids test once a year, it's a really great model for keeping people engaged. And I'm telling you, it's worked really well for me. And think about this, and think about how it would translate into whatever you might do in your own practices. All right, let me see. Any comments on that? Any questions left over? Patient-wise, you guys good for the week? Okay, and let me know. Phoebe asked for more experts on diabetes and metabolic syndrome. If there are other questions that you guys want or other experts you want to get more involved, I'm going to bring in the plant-based people as well. And we'll also have our business track going in the background as well each week. We'll be bringing in some people like that. But let me know if there's something else that we're missing. We'll try to fill in the gaps to fill out the rest of the year. Okay, take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Bye now.